If rates dip too fast, I believe we'll have another 2020 on our hands. I wanted to go through some predictions for 2024. I'm actually pretty optimistic about the market in 2024 if some things happen or some things stay how they're going right now, kind of.
So what needs to change or happen? Because that's part of the prediction.
So I've had this conversation so many times. I mean, around the Christmas table, like what's happening in real estate. We're at a pretty crazy point right now where there's a lot of buyers on the fence ready to rock and roll when rates get down to where their buying power is a little more than where they're at. A lot of these people, when they started looking, when rates were like, creeping up into the 6s, into the 7s, they were looking in certain neighborhoods. And then once those rates hit 8, they were kind of priced out of those neighborhoods. So now they're waiting for these rates to start dipping again, and we're starting to see it, getting into the low 6s, maybe even high 5s a little bit. Mm-hmm. We're starting to see that happen. So a lot of these buyers that are on the fence are now waiting for some inventory because we have no inventory. There's also, on the flip side of that coin, there's a lot of homeowners out there that are kind of trapped in that sub 5 interest rate where they need to downsize or they need to upgrade, and it just doesn't make sense. I mean, some of these people, even with a downsize, their mortgage payment's going to be more than what they have, even taking into account the equity that they have in their house and a little bit lower interest rate. They might be paying more for a smaller house than they're paying right now. Mm-hmm. So I think that if rates continue to drop gradually to that soft landing or whatever they want us to think is happening, then everything's going to be pretty cool. Yeah. And we'll have a strong market. If rates dip too fast, I believe we'll have another 2020 on our hands where, there's going to be some inventory with those people, those locked in or those trapped in homeowners that are about to sell. But I don't think it'll outpace the buyers that are on the fence right now waiting for their buying power to increase with those rates dropping. So I don't want that to happen. While it's awesome for our buyers if rates drop quickly and these guys can get into some homes, I just don't think it will create a sustainable environment for the real estate market, at least locally.
Where do you see rates by the end of next year?
I honestly hope that they're kind of right where we're at right now, to be completely honest. And I think mid 5s is like, whoa, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. But I hope that they stick in the high 5s, low 6s. I really do. I think it's a great rate. Mm-hmm. Historically speaking, it's a phenomenal rate. It's just not that 2, 3, 4 that we saw, in 2020. Mm-hmm. So I like where we're at personally. I know that it's going to suck for some home sellers that are, trying to upgrade or downsize. And I really think that you can be more flexible where we're at right now with, now we're talking about a buy down program that brings you into the low 5s, I mean, wow, that's incredible. We haven't seen that for a couple of years.
Even low 5s, I mean, the people that we got in between 7 and 8, that's a great refi for those guys.
Without a doubt. People are saving money at that point.
Yeah.
I dig it.
I'm pretty close. I think that, we're going to be somewhere between 5 and a 5.25 by the end of the year, the latter part of the year. And I just saw some really cool stuff.
You think it's going to go that low?
I saw some cool stuff this morning that really kind of made me think about it because on average, right, and I don't have the stat in front of me, but on average, homeowners stay in their home 10 to 11 years.
Which is crazy because it used to be 7.
Yeah, so the bank taking on risk, right, it's 10 to 11 years. So as long as they're getting something out, they're getting their nut out of it in 10 to 11 years. So what that tells me is that 10-year yield is pretty darn close to what the bank's getting on that 10-year rate. And I think that
That makes sense.
the spread from there is about 1 to 175 from yield to mortgage rate. And right now that yield is at 4.1.
Wow.
But the Fed rate, right, is obviously trumps the 10-year
Right.
yield because the banks are not going to loan lower than the Fed rate.
Right.
So when we see some more equilibrium, that's pretty standard.
Yeah.
When we come back to equilibrium.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, obviously when that Fed rate drops, that doesn't mean the mortgage rates are going to drop as fast as the Fed rate.
Without a doubt.
But yeah, I could see 5.25 by the end. That's my guess.
Man,
Yeah.
that would be super cool. That would be super cool for a lot of first-time home buyers. It'd be really cool for those people who need to downsize, who need to move into that 55 and older community.
I still see restricted inventory next year. And so the other stat that I saw this year,
Well, if people are staying in their homes for 10 to 11 years
Yeah.
as opposed to what it used to be 7
Yeah.
years, then we're going to be in this low inventory spot for quite some time.
I think new homes are, so new homes did the best last year.
Right.
We
What
could-
is it, like 30% or 33%
Yeah,
of all
they did
homes?
really, really well. I think new homes are going to continue to do really, really well this next year.
Uh-huh.
I'm not going to make a percentage prediction on that.
Okay.
But I think they're going to do really well. Because I think it's going to be the majority of the inventory. I think, like I said, I think we're going to continue to have restricted inventory into next year.
I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Restricted inventory and lower rates do what to home values? Because this email that you sent me, home price forecasts.
So they aggregated from a bunch of different places
Right.
into one graph.
I don't know who sent it, but this graph shows percent appreciation / depreciation, what these companies or associations are predicting. The highest being Mortgage Bankers Association, predicting that we'll see a year-over-year 4.1% gain, which in my perfect world, 4% year-over-year is a pretty darn good place for the market to be in, for the housing market to be in. On the flip side of that, Realtor.com is saying homes will lose 1.7%. Zillow also calling for a 0.2% decrease in home values year over
Depreciation
year.
value, yeah.
Everybody else, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, HPES, Goldman Sachs, and the National Association of Realtors all predict a rise. NAR saying it's just going to be a 0.7% increase. Goldman Sachs 1.9. Those guys are pretty smart. Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, both around that 2.6 to 2.8.
Yeah.
Averaging them all together at a 1.5% gain in value or gain in home price or home price appreciation, 1.5%, which isn't bad, but I mean, it's not great.
Yeah. You just started to say, what does that do to values, right? So when we think of restricted inventory, we all obviously think of supply and demand, right? And we think that with restricted inventory, that prices are just going to go up and up and up and up. Right. Over the long term, they do. Real estate goes up and to the right. However, right, we've started to see it Q4 of last year, into right now where we still have restricted inventory and we're seeing a lot of homes that are on the market that are just not moving because nobody wants to buy them.
Sitting.
So, right, it's kind of a weird situation to have restricted inventory and have sales kind of stagnant, right? As far as value, and values are not increasing right now.
Right.
Which has been kind of interesting. So what do you think about that?
Dude, I don't know, and I fear that the stagnation is going to last for quite some time in our local market. Our local market relies heavily on the weather, and we haven't seen a good snowstorm yet, right? Historically, when we see a good snowstorm, or let's take last year into account because it was a bonkers winter, we stayed pretty flat for a while because if I own a home, I don't want you trudging through it with your clients after we just got a foot of snow outside. I'm going to cancel all those showings. as a home shopper, I don't want to go look at these homes that have 2 feet of snow around them. I can't see any cracks in the foundation. I can't see. You can't even get to the crawl space in some of these older homes. So I mean, I fear that if winter starts late and runs into the beginning of spring, I think we'll definitely stay stagnant there as well. With that being said, I think
Just kind of compounding what we're already seeing.
right.
Yeah.
With that being said, talking with a lot of realtors in town, I think a lot of people are ready to list their house. I think that these people have been standing by, and the rates are just flexible enough right now to where they can dip their house that they're in and downsize or upgrade. Yeah. I keep saying that, but
yeah, right. I mean, I think people that are locked into those sub 4, sub 3, rates are opening up more and more to the idea of a mid 5 or
right.
a low 5 or somewhere in there.
Right.
With a pretty nominal buy down, right? You can get into that rate pretty easily, right?
Right. Without a doubt. I do think that buyer sentiment will outpace our listings, our new listings. I think
it's doing it right now. I think we have more buyers out there than
I think there's way more buyers out there right
listings.
Now than there are sellers.
Yeah.
Yep. I know that there's going to be an influx of properties. It always happens in February, March, April, where we start seeing a ton more stuff to go see with our clients.
And if we see, a good Fed meeting in March, good meaning that first lower.
Right. That'd be dope.
Our spring could be
crazy.
Nuts.
Right.
Yeah. And, I don't know about you, but the first day into the new year here, my phone's already blowing up with buyers.
We were talking about it today. I've been on the phone all day long, which has been awesome. Very welcomed, dude, to be completely honest with you. But how sustainable can it get, right? Yeah. If buyers start getting super active with that low inventory, how sustainable are these prices going to get? If we could see a 4% gain month over month, just in the next couple of months, and which will be okay because of where we ended, where 2023 took us. But that being said, it's going to be a wild year. It really is going to be pretty crazy to see what happens with home values, what happens with buyer sentiment, what happens with seller, confidence.
What do you think values will do?
I'm hoping for a 4% year-over-year gain here in town, or here in northern Nevada. I think that's feasible, and I'd like to see these home buyers that bought in 22, 23 and sucked it up with that 7.5%. I'd like to see them start to refi and really start to see some equity gain in the house, because every time I talk to those buyers, I'm like, man, I know you needed to buy, but some of the sellers we're talking, or excuse me, some of the buyers we're talking to right now are those 2019 buyers who are sitting in some awesome equity right now. Right. Awesome equity, and their payments pretty good, dude. So they're kicking around, they're kicking around their options, and they have them. They have some options, more options as those rates start to fall. But I'm super excited to see 2024. I want to come back to this video at the end of 2024 and be like, were we all right? Where do you see values?
I'm kind of right there. I'm going to give it a little bit more of a spread. I'm somewhere between 1% and 4%.
That's a weak call, dude.
I know, because, and I say that because I think we could go up 4%, right? I think we could see a 4% gain throughout the year, but I just don't know where we're going to end up. Are we going to end up at 4%, or are we going to end up somewhere in the middle there?
Right.
Yeah.
But you don't see a depreciation?
Not this year, no.
I don't see a depreciation, especially here locally.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't see how that could happen. But I've been wrong before.
That's
not many.
yeah.
times,
That's
but-
my other. That's why I'm at that spread, right? Because I think we could see some lowering in value for the first few months, and then we could come back up, or we could come up and we could see some lowering in value.
Right.
So I see a wave this year. I just don't know if it's at the beginning or the end.
Right. Well, it'll be fun. Stay with us. We'll inform you. We'll let you know what's going on.